My name is Scheffers. I'm one of the co-founders of OzRunways, and welcome to this webinar, our first one. So, just a little bit of an intro. When we started in 2010, just traveling around the country, going to aero clubs, going to fly-ins was a great way to introduce everyone to the app. And at that time, like, everyone was really new to the app. The app was changing fast. There was always lots of new things to show. And it was also great to get the feedback in person. Now, these days, we've been doing this for almost 13 years. We've got a much more diverse range of pilots using the app, which means that we have people who've been using it over a decade who might not be very interested in a basic planning demo at their aero club. And there are still brand new pilots, and we welcome them. They're not that interested when they're just starting out on their flying journey, hearing about advanced IFR features. So that's why we've been focusing on a lot more video content over the past year, really. We've produced a lot more videos on specific topics, and we decided to do this webinar. So this is our very first webinar, and yeah, thank you for joining in. What we're going to do in this one is focus on some new features and updated features from the past year. We're going to show you some cool stuff that's in development, and we'll finish up on a Q&A. Joining me today on this webinar are Alex Hart. Alex is an experienced airline captain who joined our team a couple of years ago, wanting a sea change and becoming a software developer. He's on our iOS team, and it's absolutely fantastic to have him because he's got such a wealth of knowledge about everything airline and large aircraft, and we can put it into the app. And at the same time, he's learning a lot from our far more longer-term experienced developers and teaching him everything about iOS. Second, Alex joining us is Alex Bohm. He's one of our software developers, and he's primarily focusing on our backend systems and particularly briefing systems lately. And he's going to show something really cool we've been developing, which is visual NOTAMs on the map and in SmartBrief. If that's confusing having two Alexes, well, obviously our first Alex is Captain Alex, but Alex Bohm moonlights as a music producer, so he'll be DJ Alex. And while these presentations are going on, please ask your questions in the chat. That's what it's there for. We'll save it till the end to the Q&A section to actually answer them, so we can get through our presentations quick. And if at the end of the day we didn't get to your question, of course, there's always support. You can email and we'll try to get your questions answered. Now, before we start with Captain Alex, first we're going to do some light entertainment. A few months ago, some of us traveled to Lake Macquarie to hang out with Matt Hall, and we decided to make a cool video of that, and which we're sharing there with you for the first time today. So let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll start the presentation after this. Thank you.
We plan all our flights with OzRunways, made down under for Aussie and Kiwi pilots. It saves us so much flight planning time, and I like to work smarter, not harder. Whether I'm flying for work or fun, I always take OzRunways with me. I need to know what's out there and who's out there with me. By reducing workload, I can concentrate on the fun stuff. The app increases safety by giving me overall situational awareness. Everything is just a tap away. Whether I'm flying hang gliders, race planes or jets, I can always rely on OzRunways. It's the best EFB on the market, and it's the only app we need.
All right, right, I hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks for the introduction, Baz. Great to be a part of the team and to be here with you all this morning. As Baz said, any questions, please put them in the chat. We're here for you. We'd love to hear from you. But before I get started, just a quick note to anyone watching in the future to please check docs.ozrunways.com. That's where our user manual is, and check to see whether any of the information we're going to be talking about here today has been updated. But for those of you here right now in the present, any questions as I'm talking, please chuck them in the chat. And I'm going to run through some of the newer features that we've introduced in sort of the last 12 months. So what I want to start with first is dark mode, a feature very heavily requested by our pilots. Obviously particularly useful for nighttime flying, but also just generally a lot of people prefer that slightly inverted, darker color looks for more contrast. So to switch that on, you go down to settings in the bottom right. Next into preferences, and then down the very bottom you'll see an option theme. So if you select that menu there, you'll get three options. I'm going to go through what each of the three options are. I'm actually going to start from the bottom here. So if you look at dark, that immediately swaps OzRunways to dark mode. So I'm just going to tap around a little bit. You'll see the map is slightly inverted. All our menu bars are darker, ScratchPad's dark, etc. Swapping back into light mode, you're going back to sort of your more traditional view that most of you are used to. So what's the last option? Automatic. Automatic follows the iPad system preference. So when you go into your main system settings on the iPad, OzRunways will follow that setting. So most of you might have a setting that when it gets dark in the evenings, your iPad will switch across to, or phone will switch across to dark mode. The app will follow that. Most people leave it on automatic, so OzRunways swaps according to when you're flying at night or just during the day. So that's dark mode. I'm going to move into some ScratchPad templates now. You can find ScratchPads in the second option across here. So if we tap on ScratchPad, you're presented with this screen. So a lot of people use ScratchPad just to take some notes. Say if you're taking an AWIS, runway 23, wind 270 at 10, etc. But wouldn't it be great if we had some pre-filled boxes that would allow you to neatly enter this information? Well, that's what we've created with our templates. So at the top left, you tap the little page icon, you'll get a list of available templates. So we've got ATIS, clearance, flight log, trend, fuel log, and fuel flow. Let's start with ATIS. So if you tap on that, you'll then get some neat boxes where you can neatly fill out your ATIS. Let's briefly just start filling one out. So we've got Adelaide, runway 23, some wind, some viz, etc. Now, once you've started writing on the iPad, you'll see these three dots become available. What do? That enables you to share these strokes to another device or create a PDF with these saved template. Particularly useful when you're doing fuel logs or flight logs for logging purposes. Now, to delete, my favorite way is just pressing and holding on the ScratchPad that you're using. You'll then get those same three options as well as delete down the bottom. So tap on that and then that will remove that ScratchPad. You also have the traditional Apple way of deleting things, swiping across, and that will also delete the ScratchPad as well. Cool. We're now going to move across to Airfield weather dots. What is that? Well, let's go back to the map screen. Tap Maps on the bottom left, and you'll start to see some colored dots on the map. So firstly, I want to touch on a high level on what they're doing here. These is the current weather conditions. This is not a forecast where you'd be going into SmartBrief for that. It's a snapshot of what is currently going on. But what do I mean by current? Well, that depends on whether you've got eAWIS enabled. I'll get to where that is now. But eAWIS is sort of like you've called up the AWIS phone number and you're getting read out the information. It's the current conditions. Versus METAR. So the color dots could be up to 30 minutes delayed if you're using METAR. Right, so how do we swap? Settings, bottom right, preferences, and then you can see allow eAWIS where available. So you toggle that to on, and then you're getting approximately every minute or so updates there. So click back on the map screen, And again, you'll start to be presented with some of the colors. So, as a bit of a guide for the colors, I like to think of it as we've got green, beautiful VFR day for flying, into yellow, marginal VFR, and then the last two colors are IFR. So we've got orange, think of that as you're approaching alternate minima. Into red, basically you're not expecting to get visual on an instrument approach. So how do we know what's causing the color to deteriorate? Well, you can see down here in Hamilton, if we click on that, you can see there's broken cloud at 800 and broken at 1200 right here. So you can actually see what's causing the color dot to be that associated color. Excellent. Now, while we're still on the map screen, we're going to look at some traffic bubble size. So something that was very heavily requested by our pilots, and I'm going to pause right there for a second. Heavily requested by you guys. We love hearing what you're interested in and what you're after next in our app. So please write into support@OzRunways.com. We can tally up all your requests and look at what features we work on next. All right, so the first and most easiest way to make all the traffic bubbles large is by pressing and holding on our traffic option in the top right here. You can instantly see all the traffic bubbles in large, and you can see some of the tracks on the screen as well. But what if you just want to generally make the traffic bubbles larger? Right, well, we tap back into our traffic option here, and then you change this bubble size. As I'm doing that, you'll see the traffic bubbles on the map are getting larger and smaller accordingly. Just do that one more time. So we've got the full size here, right down to the smallest size of the traffic bubbles. This is also where you can change your aircraft profile as well, and the call sign that's displayed for OzRunways traffic. Right, the last feature that I want to show you in this part of the presentation is our new frequency navigator mode. Super helpful for whenever I go flying. I'm always wanting to see sort of a snapshot of all the frequencies rather than going digging through the IRSA. So we've recently added that. So if we tap on Adelaide here as an example, and then we select Adelaide again from the top, or your relevant airfield that you're interested in, you'll then see down here, we've now got a scrolling view here of all the frequencies. So from left to right, we've got the ATIS, the clearance delivery, ground, tower, approach and departure frequency into some of your nav-aid frequencies. So now you're looking at that and going, right, well, that's the order at which I'm conducting the flight. That's right, that's how we've designed it. So this will work for any of your CTAF frequencies as well as showing Melbourne Centre, for instance. So if we tap across into Port Pirie, we'll see the CTAF is 1269. You've got the lighting frequency, and then of course the relevant Melbourne Centre frequency. Really hope you enjoy that as much as I do when I'm flying. I'm now going to hand across to DJ Alex to do his presentation on another very handy feature that I enjoy when I'm flying as well. So thanks, Alex.
Thanks for that, Captain Alex. So this is an early feature preview that we're really excited to share with you. For that reason, we've got to switch over to the preview app. This is work in progress. And here we are. So I've got a plan from Adelaide to Sydney, which you can see on the map here. This is a normal IFR route. And if we switch over to Smart Brief, which is our existing briefing tab, all of the smart navigation data for weather, NOTAMs, we're now introducing smart NOTAMs. Smart NOTAMs include extra information on the map that's relevant to your flight. As you can see, we've got this sausage from Adelaide to Sydney. Smart NOTAMs are going to know the exact geometry and altitudes that NOTAMs are valid for. This enables us to calculate the intersection between your plan and the NOTAMs to only include the most relevant and most important NOTAMs. In addition, we've added heuristics to determine the importance of the NOTAMs. You can see that from these stars here. If there's a runway closure event, for example, you'll see the importance increases to 5 stars for a red one. As we go through our plan, we can click on a NOTAM and it will highlight in the map view. Point NOTAMs like obstacles, multi-copter events will show an exact location as well. So when you're planning your route, you can see specifically where this NOTAM is instead of just its general area. As we can see, we've got multicopters here in Adelaide on North Terrace. We've got YPAD specific NOTAMs. We've got cranes, towers. As we continue to scroll through this list, we'll get them ordered from our departure airport to our arrival airport. There's NOTAMs for the Edinburgh airspace above Adelaide. And here we can see the next NOTAM that intersects our route is one for a tower that hasn't been added to the AIP yet. NOTAMs for larger areas are also included. And finally, NOTAMs for locations around our arrival airport. We think that this is going to be really useful to pilots. We're still working on this. We're still adding more types, more information, more icons for different types. We'd love some feedback for what types of NOTAMs you're interested in, what types of NOTAMs you think aren't as important. This feature is going to be available for all users with SmartBrief, so with a VFR Premium subscription. But we think that this is going to be really useful for all types of pilots, from VFR flight to IFR flight. And that's pretty much it. Let's see if there's any quick questions. Looks like it's all been answered in the chat. We've got, yep, so smart NOTAMs can capture FIR NOTAMs en route. Yep, so FIR NOTAMs for the entire FIR are included in this list. We should have some somewhere here. Here we are. This is an FIR NOTAM. And that seems to be all that we've got for questions. So I'm going to hand back to Alex. We'll be more than happy to take any other questions you have or feedback or advice you have of what information would be useful to you. If you can contact support@OzRunways.com. Thanks for that. Here you go, Captain Alex.
Thanks, DJ Alex. Excellent. All right, so just having a look through some of your comments while Alex was speaking there. So morning to everyone, Nigel, Paul, Linton, Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Right, so for those IFR pilots, the next feature, which we can't wait to show you, drastically increasing situational awareness when you're conducting your instrument approaches. So we're going to show you a quick video shortly. But before we do that, this feature is available currently to all our IFR Premium subscribers. It's going to be the first feature in a new tier of subscription, which we'll be introducing later on. But for now, it's available as a trial to all of our IFR Premium subscribers. So please turn it on, which you're about to see how to do that, and give us some feedback. We'd love to see what you think, even if it's just love this feature or any sort of minor improvements that you'd like to suggest. Again, we'd love to hear from you. And of course, jot down any questions related to this feature in the questions so we can answer them for you right here in this webinar. All right, sit back, relax, enjoy this brief video we're about to play for you on how to use our newest feature in SmartPlates.
Welcome to OzRunways SmartPlates, the latest feature available in OzRunways iOS version 11.1. SmartPlates dynamically highlights areas of an approach plate as you fly, bringing a new level of convenience and situational awareness to your instrument flying experience. To activate SmartPlates, ensure you have the appropriate subscription or trial. Then, in the Chart Setting menu, simply enable SmartPlates. Charts that support the SmartPlates feature are conveniently annotated in the list, making it easy to identify them at a glance. Now, let's explore the new vertical information boxes on the left, designed to lower your workload by providing useful information. At the top, your current GPS ground speed is predominantly displayed. Under that, you'll find the rate of descent required to achieve the specified approach angle at your current ground speed. And lastly, the latest surface wind components are shown, indicating the crosswind and headwind or tailwind components. The runway for your approach is automatically selected, but you can cycle through other runways by tapping on the box. Keep in mind that crosswind components above 15 knots and tailwind components greater than 3 knots are highlighted in red for your attention. On the approach plate itself, the 10 and 25 mile minimum sector altitudes, or MSAs, are dynamically highlighted as you enter each respective sector. Additionally, when you're outside 25 nautical miles, a red arc appears, indicating the sector that will become relevant next. If a holding diagram is specified, a small arrow will display the entry direction, making it easier for you to orientate yourself. When you're flying the approach, the appropriate sectors on the plate will be highlighted. The target altitudes for the 3-degree profile will highlight the next relevant altitude, guiding you smoothly through the descent. The terrain steps on the approach plate will also dynamically highlight based on your current sector. As you progress through the sector, a small dotted line visually tracks your progress. For enhanced safety awareness in IMC, when you are more than 200 feet below the published step on approach, it will highlight red. As you pass 3 mile final, the missed approach text is automatically highlighted until you're outside 5 miles, helping you stay aware during this critical phase of flight. And lastly, the relevant minima can be manually selected by the pilot, further reducing workload. Well, that wraps up our overview of SmartPlates in OzRunways. Experience a new level of convenience, safety, and situational awareness with this incredibly powerful instrument flying feature.
Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that presentation, and even better if soon you'll actually go flying with SmartPlates. We're very proud of it. We're still improving it. We'd love your feedback, and it's just only going to get better and better. Okay, that's it for the presentations that we prepared, and it's time for Q&A right now. So one of the questions we had just now, can you display crosswind and headwind components while you're en route? Yes and no. We could display forecast, that's all we can do, because obviously to display it in a way that aircraft avionics do, you need actual indicated airspeed and true airspeed. You need the magnetic heading. All those things we don't have, because you need to compare magnetic heading to actual track and true airspeed to ground speed. That's the way these avionics calculated, and we just don't have that information, so we can't do that.
Yeah, that's right. We can certainly make it richer for some of the elements in PNR for planning and, off-route PNR as we start to add some of that. But yeah, certainly we can't have a live stream of that information. But great question. Nigel, yeah, sure. Reach out to support at OzRunways.com, and we can add a trial of the Asia subscription for you, so you can have a play yourself to see whether that will work well for your needs. So yeah, please reach out for us. We're happy to add that as a trial for you, no problems at all. What else have we got here? So there was one about capturing restricted areas, I think it was, on the map. I'm just looking who asked that one. Thanks for that. It's a great question. We don't currently have that, but that's something that could work perfectly in the new tool. I've just spoken with Alex off camera about that, and he loves that idea. So thank you for that. That's a great idea. What other questions have we got?
And I think Alice was going to feed us the questions.
We're just looking at some more questions.
Yeah, we're just looking at some more questions. Sorry about this. And they're not quite coming through at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen Damien there. Thanks for your question about checklists. I can see there's actually been a couple of you that have asked about checklists. Yeah, we're very keen at some stage to add that. That's not currently in development, but that's quite high up on our list that we know that people are interested in checklists. So yeah, no, thanks for your interest on checklist. Yeah, that is something that we're interested in doing.
Yeah, sorry, I was just communicating with Alice, who has her headphones on, that the questions weren't coming through. So they are now. We had a question about the customizable of adding your own templates.
Yeah, sure. So custom templates, there's obviously quite a lot of code involved into making the templates. In terms of a custom template, it's something that I looked at doing when I was actually designing this feature. And some of the limitations include if we allow some image uploads, you'll briefly remember earlier on in the presentation, we spoke about dark mode. If we allow images to be uploaded, for instance, and you're swapping between light and dark mode, then your image would just be the inverse color and you won't be able to see anything. So there's certainly some limitations there that we can get around, but it's sort of a whole nother feature in itself. With that in mind, we have the ability for enterprise customers, if they follow our same format that we've got, to enter their own custom templates, and we can work on coding those for a small fee for the work that's involved in that. But in saying that, like everything, please, if you'd like to see that, the more requests we get, we have a massive list of feature requests from you guys, so we can look at adding, working out a way to make that work. So yeah, please just keep letting us know if that's something that you like. Thanks, Nigel. Another checklist. Glad to see you're interested in that. And one small step as well. Thank you.
So another question here from from Damien. No, it's scrolling fast. I'm sorry. Angus, with SmartPlates, are there any plans to show the actual height on the vertical profile? No. There's a couple of reasons for that. Part of it is the scaling of the actual plates, although we could work around that. But all we have is GPS altitude, and GPS altitude is notoriously unreliable, especially without an augmentation system like WAS. And we are getting that in Australia. Things will be better. But it's not uncommon to be about 200 feet out from where you want to be. So it's just not a safe thing for us to actually add that into SmartPlates. So we just keep showing you where you are laterally, and we'll keep showing you where, which altitude step that you're in, and so you can keep track of that during your approach, but we won't actually have a vertical airplane indication.
Yeah, thanks. Greg, can I install OzRunways maps onto my Dynon SkyView without having to subscribe to IFR Premium? Yes, VFR Premium also get access to Dynon maps, so you can be on a VFR Premium subscription for that as well. Got some more.
What are the main benefits of the app for drone users? Essentially, it gives you access to all the maps you need, so you can see where the airspace is. You can get URSA, you can get telephone numbers of people who might have to call if you're in their airspace. That's it, essentially. So we have a lot of drone operators who are using OzRunways. But for that reason, there's no super specific features for drones in the app. We do have a simplified app called Runway Check, which does show some areas around control aerodromes where you're not supposed to fly. But there's a lot more to it than that for commercial operations and considerations. So just use the airspace maps and URSA and NOTAMs, and that's how you make use of that.
Well, Annie, I hope you're enjoying Oshkosh. How fantastic. I wish I was there. I said that you've only seen the tail end. No problems. You can always scroll back on the video right now. Or for anyone just joining us, welcome. Please go back to the video. We've got some brand new things we've shown you just for today as an exclusive preview. So please feel free to scroll back. And of course, the webinar will be available post-presentation as well. The next question I wanted to address was MA Films. Great question in terms of syncing. That is something that we're also interested in doing alongside Checklist at some stage. Definitely on our roadmap. We've got quite a few requests from you guys, and it's definitely something we're looking into. So thank you so much for that.
And here's a question. Will there be other integrations of iCloud, OneDrive, etc.? At the moment, as you're probably aware, because you're saying other, we do have Dropbox integration. We haven't worked on any other integration directly with the app. We have in our dashboard for enterprise users, but I see where you're coming from. So not right now. What you can do at the moment to get something from iCloud Drive into OzRunways is to simply tap on the file in in the Files app on your iPad and say open in OzRunways, and actually be copied into OzRunways file system, and will be listed with your files there.
All right, so CPLWJJ, I think it is, sorry, your username there. Do you have to activate the approach for highlighting to come on? No, just make sure on the approach plate in your settings icon up here, SmartPlates is turned on, and then we'll automatically start drawing the MSAs and all the associated highlighting. So you certainly don't need to have the approach activated as such, no. Peter, any plans to introduce, questions just scroll screen, any plans to introduce glide rings, basically the question was. Yeah, again, something that we're looking at.
Yeah, so the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And there'll be more than just a glide ring, but it's something that's in development and being planned, and it is actually pretty high on our list, because we do have a lot of enterprise customers, especially asking for that, and IFR customers.
Sure.
So we're working on it.
Yeah. Another one from Peter about the next FIA frequency flash when you're approaching the boundary, so you don't miss the frequency changeover. Yeah, another great idea. We'll jot that one down. We haven't got that one on our list, so that's a great one. Love that. Thank you very much.
Here's a question. Can I export OzRunways plan to Runway? And Runway is, of course,
Good question.
Our Android version. Well, Luke jumped into our internal chat here. He's one of the main Android developers. And he says the best way is exporting your plan to GPX format in OzRunways, and then sending that to Runway. So find your plan, say export, say share, or export as GPX, and then send it to your email or Google Drive, or however you want to share it with Runway.
Yeah, that's right. Amber, what's the quickest and most complete way to share an active flight plan between iOS devices, from an iPad to iPhone, or even a Mac, of course? Good reminder, actually. We have a Mac app on the App Store. If you've got a Mac, please download. You've got some desktop planning there. And then that brings up this question very commonly. How do I then share my plan across? As I mentioned earlier, it's something we want to look into, is sharing it through the cloud. But for now, I think the easiest way is to share through AirDrop. So if you're just pressing in your plan, so if you're opening a plan down here, you've got your active plan shown. If you press the three dots, you can see here it says share. Once you press that, you're then getting all the associated options to share through AirDrop. Some people like to share through their cloud providers, so through iCloud, through Google Drive, or your preferred Dropbox or whatever. That's another easy way to do it, as long as you've got access to that cloud storage on both of them. But certainly, my gut would be AirDrop. I don't know about you, Baz, but I think AirDrop's
AirDrop's great.
Probably the easiest way.
Similar, well, while we're on files, Lloyd K is asking, could customizable checklists be made on PC, then saved as PDF format, and then uploaded to OzRunways, accessible via documents? Yes, you can. So the way you do that is very similar to what I just described, with getting your own documents out of iCloud or Google Drive. You would simply, the easiest way to do it is to create the PDF on your computer and just email it to yourself, to an account that you've got in your mail app on the iPad. And then you simply tap on it, tap on the file, tap on the attachment, and say open in, and open it in OzRunways. It'll be copied to OzRunways. It'll be available in the files, in the documents section of OzRunways. Easy one.
So I just did a demo then, as Baz was speaking, on exactly how to do that, but it wasn't a checklist, but it was a test PDF. One other thing I'd like to point out at this stage is you can prepend the AKO code at the beginning. So you can see here I've done ypad.pdf name. What that does is that automatically attaches that PDF to the airport. So if we go into Adelaide and tap on Adelaide, you'll see in your normal, all your approach plates here that you normally see, or your Ursa documents. If you scroll right to the end, you'll see your imported PDF that you've just done. So let's just say one of those checklists was for Adelaide or a specific plane. You could actually attach that to anywhere. It was a departure procedure or something. A really neat way to use documents. What else we got?
There's an interesting IFR planning questions.
Oh, yeah.
Departing, was it Sunshine Coast? YB is used at Sunshine Coast?
That's it,
I think it's Sunshine Coast, yes.
Yep.
and normally take you outbound via Hollis, which is the wrong way. Why is this? So there's a few issues with this and why this happens. Part of it is that we don't have that route information in a good computer readable format from Airservices. So if there is a preferred route between points, obviously that's easy. We will show you that. You select it and you will most likely be cleared to go that way. For more complex things, I struggle with it myself here as well at Airfield, because we fly out of Airfield all the time. All the routings they really want you to do via Adelaide VOR and then onto Airways to other places. So the way we get around that is, if Alex, you can pull up a quick plan. So if I were to leave from Airfield, I would select Airfield here, and I just give it a hint. I would say I'm first going to go to AD, so the Adelaide VOR, and then I want to go to Kimba. So what I'll do now, it is suggesting me a custom route to Kimba, which takes me which takes me via Hockey, which is exactly where they want me to go. So we are looking at ways to improve this, and we also believe we are getting better information as Airservices switches to a more electronic format for all these things. But in the meantime, just give it a hint. So if you know what your first waypoint is that you really should be having, just type in Sunshine Coast, that waypoint, then your destination, and there's a really good chance you'll get a really good route suggested.
Yeah, Eugene, great question. The question was, will all plates become smart in the future? Understanding not all distance are from GPS reference. Yeah, that's exactly correct. But yes, all plates will be made smart in the future. We've just started with your RNAVs, the most commonly flown approaches. Next up, we're looking at ILSs and then moving into some more complex one like DME arrivals and whatnot. But yep, certainly our plan.
And it also, again, it depends on the data we're getting from Airservices. And one of the things we've had for many, many years now is that you can actually load an RNAV approach into OzRunways. The reason we've been able to do that very easily is because the very standardized format of IFR waypoints that go into the approach. So we just notice you're putting in Adelaide November Echo. You're loading the approach, and we'll find, based on that naming convention, we'll find the other points. We've never had this data for things like SITs and stars because they're all very custom. But again, Airservices, as they're moving to a more digital delivery of this information, is starting to make these available, and we certainly want to implement them and give IFR pilots an easy way to put in SITs and stars as well, or any other type of approach.
Jenny, there was details on using Windy in the last SportPilot. I'm glad you're reading that one. How do you access these features? Great question. So the question relates directly to Windy. If you press this button down in the bottom left, which is our radar weather pop-up menu. To be completely clear, this is different to the weather overlay on the map. I will show you that in a second. But you can see here you get your three options at the top. So you get your bomb radar view. So your traditional ones you see on the bomb website, you can change the range at the top right here. Next into sat view, and then finally from your question into Windy. We'll just let sat view load here for completion's sake. If it loads. There we go. And now into Windy. So from Windy, you then, of course, have your flight plan come up on the map like you can see, in addition to the way you can tap anywhere. And then, of course, you get that forecast condition. Keep in mind, again, Windy is forecast. It's not actual conditions. So you can tap the wind icon at the top right here, the little bar there, and then you can move the slider here to change the forecast level that you're after, as well as there's two different forecast models here for you to choose from. Hope that answers your question, Jenny. Please let me know if there was something else you're after in Windy.
Here's an interesting question from Greg. Do you have access to the iPad system information to create a temperature warning? I'm not actually sure if that is some data we can access. It's very interesting to look into it, because of course Greg is trying to avoid it shutting down during critical phases. Yeah, we'll look into that. There is one warning. Once the screen starts scrolling much slower, it means the iPad's getting hot. But that's not ideal, obviously. We always recommend like knowing your equipment, knowing your aircraft, trying to have your iPad in a place where this is rare to happen. I know it's hard, for instance, if you have a bubble canopy and you have your iPad on your knee, it's very easy to get overheated, especially if you're slowing down in that on approaches and you have less airflow coming into the cockpit and you're at lower levels in warmer air. So yeah, try to manage that, try to get a vent on it, try to keep it in the shade if you can. But we'll definitely look into that. It's a very interesting suggestion. And another question I saw here about integration with Dynon and future development plan, Dynon Data.
There's been a lot of questions on that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, Danny, if you got anything more specific. So what we do right now is if you have a premium subscription, either VFR or IFR, you get included both the hybrid VFR map for Australia, or if you're in New Zealand, you get the New Zealand map. And a database, which it's technically, it's a VFR database with airspace, VFR waypoints, as many aerodromes and ALAs as we can fit in. So that enables you to plan, to type in your plan into your Dynon system and make the Dynon autopilot fly it for you. So that's very, very useful. You can also, if you connect via Wi-Fi, you can select share to send to Dynon from the plan, and this will put the plan into your Dynon system automatically. We haven't done much IFR data, and the main reason for that is that if you're going to be flying IFR, you're going to be flying using a certified GPS, and the moment you put your route into that certified GPS, that route and any IFR waypoints will populate anyway on your Dynon screen. And of course, if you want to read approach plates, you've got an iPad for that. So we are looking into making this better. It is on our to-do list, but as you can imagine, we have a massive to-do list and only a limited number of resources.
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions. Just someone asked about in windy, basically presetting that altitude level based on your altitude. Yep, that's a great idea. As we load windy, I guess we could have it preset at that altitude with something I'll add to the feature request list. Thank you for that. There's a few questions on, someone asked about, I want to see all traffic, not just OzRunways traffic. Someone's also asked about SkyEchos. It's a perfect way to see live traffic. By using a SkyEcho device, you'll get ADSB traffic in and out. Not only are you subject to all the delays associated with cellular, it's live traffic updates, and it's certainly the best way to see all the traffic. We sell SkyEchos on our website. So please have a look there. I highly recommend those units. ADSB devices are aren't they? Just
there's a question here from Jenny about SkyEcho as well. Can you change to a discrete transponder frequency in flight using SkyEcho? Not via our interface, but also remember SkyEcho is not an actual transponder. So it is only ADSB. And I can imagine that, I assume your situation is you have a VFR aircraft and you have a Mode C transponder in there, plus you have the SkyEcho. Sometimes you go through airspace or get a flight following where you get a discrete code assigned for your VFR flight, and you might want to put that in SkyEcho. It's not a use case, to be honest, I thought about. So it was one of the reasons I think it's not in the interface as far as I know. Also, it's not super important because your SkyEcho does not show up on ATC screens. They filter them out. So it's only aircraft to aircraft for traffic avoidance. So by not setting it on SkyEcho, it's not going to mess up anything with ATC, even if you're on a discrete code on your own transponder.
Excellent. I've had this page up on the iPad for a little bit. Someone asked about, oh cool, someone's pointing it out for me, thanks. Garrett, yep, you can amend it by typing in your aircraft call sign here. So that was in under NAIPS, and then you can see cancel, amend the flight plan, enter your call sign, and then you can just update it like you would on the Airservices website.
although you don't even need to put in your call sign.
No, you
If
can, true.
you just submit with no call sign, it'll just show all the flights that you've submitted on your account. But Alex, coming from an airline background, probably with a shared NAIPS account.
Yes, shared NAIPS account,
exactly. But not relevant to individual use. Just hit submit without your call sign, and you'll get any flights that have been submitted to NAIPS.
A few people talking about cooling devices and just cooling down the iPad. From my experience flying in sort of the upper areas of South Australia where it gets just a little bit warm, and this was in planes without air conditioning, the best way to keep the iPad running is really just to avoid that direct sunlight. Buying some shades and just keeping the sun off the iPad. Typically the iPad doesn't need anything sort of additional other than itself. Some of the really thick cases will trap that heat, so consider a thinner case. Even taking in and out as you get in and out of the plane. We've all smashed iPads. Well, maybe that's just me being a klutz. But so I understand having the thicker cases, but perhaps take them out for when you're flying. But just keeping it out of that direct sunlight, the iPads generally does stay within that temperature range. Yeah.
Interesting one from Eugene. Can you add a feature to load an approach from SmartPlates instead of having to rubber band the initial approach fix on the map? Yes, we can add that. It's actually a really good idea. As I was saying before, we're also looking at, once we get the data from Airservices and have ingested it, loading other types of approaches in SITs and stars, which will require some changes on how we load those. So at that time, we'll probably end up looking at loading any approach via a button there straight onto the map. Thanks for that suggestion.
I'm just having a look at the other one. There's been a few questions on Apple Pencil. You can certainly use the Apple Pencil in ScratchPad, but there isn't any functionality at the moment to do it on the map screen. That's an interesting thought. Something also I can jot down. Thank you for that. That makes sense. Specifically, I'm guessing for VFR flight and your 10-mile markers and all that. So that's a great idea. Looks like we're getting towards the end of the questions. Please throw up any last questions. For those joining us who have joined recently, welcome from all of us. You can also go back in time and watch all the previous questions as well as our presentation that we all did earlier. So yeah, welcome, good morning. Please go back and watch some of the exclusive things that we've shown earlier.
So Steve is asking, can I have an option to show the actual height of an aircraft? Look, not opposed to it. Trying to think about it right now, how we would change that. It would almost be like a system-wide setting change where you can choose one or the other. It's going to be hard to just do it on the fly. But yeah, right now it is, as you say, it is a relative height, and it's in hundreds of feet. So if you're looking at traffic bubbles and it says plus 005, it is 500 feet above you. And minus 005 is below you. And do keep in mind that GPS altitude is not always super accurate. And also an interesting one about a question that was asked me this week, so it's probably worth explaining anyway. When you're using SkyEcho or another ADSB device, any transponder or ADSB device sends their pressure altitude relative to just the 1013 standard atmosphere QNH. So when we compare aircraft to aircraft, essentially your aircraft height to other aircraft around you, we need to take that into account. So there are two ways to do that. If you have a SkyEcho or a Stratus 3, they actually have a barometer inside, and we can actually compare pressure height against pressure height directly. Of course, there might be a slight difference. As you know, if you turn on your alternate static in your airplane, there's a slight difference in altitude from the outside static port, but it's not significant enough to be a problem. It is a problem, however, if you take your SkyEcho or Stratus, more likely, as some of our customers flying jets do, in the jet, in a pressurized aircraft, you're never going to get higher than 8,000 feet. Yeah. So we do detect that. If the GPS height is significantly different from the pressure height that's being reported to us from the device, we will switch to just GPS. But when we do GPS, and that includes devices that don't have a barometer at all, so if you have a Ping or maybe a Stratix that you built yourself from a Raspberry Pi kit, They generally don't have barometers. We only have a GPS hub, but what we do often have is an internet connection. And just like we can show your QNH in the hub box for the nearest aerodrome, we can also use that same QNH to adjust the pressure height of other aircraft in your area on ADSB, and therefore get that proper height comparison that's within a good margin of error. Don't try to avoid anyone by 100 feet. Try to shoot for 500 or 1,000.
Jenny, Julian, Keith, thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Someone's asked about submitting flight plans. So I've got a flight plan active here. So if we go into our quick plan down the bottom here, you'll see a little NAIPS button. So if you press on that one, you'll then get presented with the NAIPS submission form. Fill that out. It brings up a really good point of aircraft profiles. The more time you put into your aircraft profile, the more we can show you. PNRs, flight planning, we've spoken about TAS, we've spoken about all sorts of different things throughout the app. Yeah, take some time. If you've got any questions, support@OzRunways.com for these aircraft profiles.
Yeah, and I always
you get
like
so much out of it.
I always like to say that if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, there's the submit flight notification. This form is supposed to be for checking what you're sending. If you are editing things on this, you're probably doing it wrong because you haven't set up your aircraft profile correctly. So in the ideal situation, when you've set it all up correctly, you get this plan up, you scroll through it just to verify it, you hit submit, and it will be submitted. That's the main tip here I've got.
Yeah. Another thanks from Neil and Lloyd. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. Noel's got something on restricted areas. Sorry, Noel, just reading your question. As restricted areas become active, can this be shown as a red highlight to fill the red boundary area? Yeah, we obviously show restricted areas at this stage, and there's a lot more work going on this in the NOTAM field. What we'll do, there's a lot of obviously information coming out from DJ Alex's presentation on improving that. If you've got any particular questions, I don't understand exactly what you're asking there, just write in to support@OzRunways.com and Alex can answer that one.
Actually, one more question. Once NAIPS submitted, is the only way to exit the screen is to press the delete button? No, once you've submitted it...
Are you saying once you've submitted it?
That's the last question, so...
Once NAIPS submitted, the only... you should just be able to tap outside I probably have this in the past. Let me just change this for you, and we'll try it right now for you. Trade it off LOX term. What's the time right now? Yep, that's going to be fine.
So submit flight notification.
Okay, so I haven't filled out this one. You could just tap away from the submission form, and that will automatically close it. You don't need to click the delete button.
There's also, if you have a successful submission, in the top corner there will be a save button where you can save that to your NAIPS filed plans. Once you hit the save button, it saves and closes. So saving is worth doing because then you can go back to flight plan submissions in the settings tab, and it will show you the results again of whatever you submitted if you want to refer to it. Here Guy is asking, can you change the scale of the CDI movement with the HSI overlay widgets? In a word, no. To be fair, I think that HSI hasn't seen a lot of love in quite a while. It's something that we probably need to revisit and make better. But at the moment you can't. It's just a fixed scale.
Yeah, it's certainly something we'll look at when we're sort of updating some of the things. One of the older things in the app. So.
Yeah, it's actually funny because it is. I've tried this with myself. It is, it's not certified avionics. You don't want to rely on it, but people have certainly contacted us that they have come into problems with their certified avionics that failed. And the only other option was to actually fly the approach on the iPad. And when you got to do what you got to do, you do it. So it is worth having these tools be reliable and more in line with what people expect from the avionics. Well, just a couple more questions, so a couple more minutes to go. Let's see if we can have a few more
Yeah,
questions
there's
coming
one I
through.
like here, just on desktop planning. Yeah, so I know MA Films, I know your question's related directly to Windows, I can see that. But for those who are using Apple, we do have our desktop planning. Just visit the App Store on your Mac and search for OzRunways like you do on your iPhone and iPad, and you can download it from there. Regarding Windows, the short answer is no. There is some workarounds which we can talk about if you send us a message that we don't officially support, but basically that's using our Android application. Runway, and you can. There is a way to run that on a Windows device. It's not officially supported by us, but look into that, running Android apps on Windows. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Baz?
No. Actually, if you can scroll down, or who's got that screen?
Yeah.
So there is a question: why should I have to buy SkyEcho, and can't you just show traffic from other apps as well? To be fair. There are a lot more ADSB transponders out there and SkyEcho units out there than there are people transmitting their location on any app, including our own. So if we look at our statistics, maybe half of our flights that people are doing, they're using traffic, and I'm sure for other apps it's very similar. Plus, there's a much smaller number of them. It's not a solution. I mean, I love safety as much as anyone. If you value safety, get ADSB in and out, and SkyEcho, if you're just VFR, will do just fine. But it is absolute best. So it's a standard, a worldwide standard, and I think we should all adopt it now that it's become actually very, very affordable compared to what it used to be. And another question, does it satisfy ADSB and out requirements? I touched on that earlier a bit. No, it does not. It is purely for aircraft to aircraft. ATC does not see it on their screens. So if you want to be seen by ATC on their screens, you have to have a full certified panel mount transponder.
So we've just got one more minute, so closing questions here, maybe one more each, Baz?
Yep.
All right, so let's have a look. Oh, I love that MA Films. Use Siri to read out some data. Yeah, that's a great idea. Another thing we can add to our feature suggestion list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We have actually looked at this in the past, and that's not really the way Siri works. You can't directly with your app. Yeah. So but there's definitely things. There's always things going on here in the lab with new devices and new technology, and we're trying
things like shortcuts that you can call things. Yeah, it's certainly something we can look at. But that's a great idea.
Well, one of the things we is now on the short-term to-do list, because it has been asked and it's become more important, is that we are going to do aural alerts for ADSB traffic sooner rather than later now. So that's moved up on the list recently. We've got a few other things we really want to finish that we're working on, but then we'll get into that.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Final, Ted, Nigel, Peter, Amber, Damien, thanks very much, guys. Enjoy, have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I'm going to hand back over to Baz here, but just from me, thanks for joining us. It's been great.
So that's all we have time for. Thanks for joining from me as well. So you can expect more of these coming. Starting Thursday night, we've got one of these on Android. It was presented by Jake, our support manager. There's a link going to be, or already is, feedback for a feedback form, but it's going to be in the chat. So Alice will be posting that. Click on it, let us know what you thought. If you've got any more questions, contact our support. And of course, this video will also be archived, so you can watch it back if you want to, or send the link to your to any friends that you think should see it. And then, finally, thanks for joining us. And because we thought it was really, really cool, we'll just leave you with that Matt Hall video one more time.
Have a great weekend, guys.
We plan all our flights with OzRunways, made down under for Aussie and Kiwi pilots. It saves us so much flight planning time, and I like to work smarter, not harder. Whether I'm flying for work or fun, I always take OzRunways with me. I need to know what's out there and who's out there with me. By reducing workload, I can concentrate on the fun stuff. The app increases safety by giving me overall situational awareness. Everything is just a tap away. Whether I'm flying hang gliders, race planes or jets, I can always rely on OzRunways. It's the best EFB on the market, and it's the only app we need.